Hello and welcome. This is your instructor, Dennis Westman, and today I want to talk a little bit about the next section in our textbook that we'll be covering, which is dealing with Microsoft Access. Now, Microsoft Access is probably a program that you're going to be least familiar with, just because it's one of those programs that you don't typically use day in and day out with your classes, your personal work, your professional work, and so on. But what you probably don't realize is that you are using it even when you're watching this video right now. You're using a database program to pull up the information and view the video like you're doing right now. And when you're using Blackboard, or when you're enrolling or registering or using your debit card and so on. And so there's all sorts of places that you're using a database, maybe not necessarily Microsoft Access, but a database nonetheless, that typically you're not familiar with or knowing that you're even using it. So Microsoft Access and databases in general are something you use every day, but maybe you're just not aware that you are using it every day. So, as we've done in the past, I'd like you to take out your textbook and let's look at the Access section in your textbook, which is going to be Unit A, and it's getting started with Access 2010, and it looks something like this. And what we're going to do is we're just going to work through and talk a little bit about the different sections of this particular unit and give you an overview of Microsoft Access. So again, we're going to start on page Access, page 2, which is Understanding Relational Databases. And if you look at the top of Access, page 2, Microsoft Access is a relational database software that runs on the Windows operating system. It's used to manage data that is organized into lists, such as information about customers, products, vendors, employees, and so on. And then if you look in the middle section of page 2, it talks a little about the advantages of using Access, including avoiding duplicate data, information is more accurate and reliable, data entry is faster, information can be viewed, retrieved, and stored in such a way that makes it very user-friendly, and so on. And like I said before, you've probably maybe not used Microsoft Access, but you have used databases before. And so what happens is whenever you use these items, you're not familiar, or you're not even knowing that you're using a particular type of database. And again, it's just a collection of items that you can pull from to do reports and forms and so on. Now, if you look at Access page 4, this talks a little bit about exploring a database. And it's just giving you some details on how to start the program and how to actually go in and look at the different areas of the program. And if you look on page Access 5, I would pay careful attention to the different figures on the different sections so you're very comfortable with how the screen is laid out, because this is going to be a little bit different than what some of the other programs you've used in the past look like. Now on page 6, it talks about actually creating a database. And you can create a database using a template, or you can create one from scratch. Definitely look at page 6, and it's going to give you the step-by-step directions on how to go in and actually create a database. And if you look on page 7, it also shows the various screens that you use to create the databases. Now, a part of a database, an element of a database, is called a table. And a database can contain multiple tables, and those tables are usually specific to some bits of information. And so what happens is the database is the overall structure, and then you have multiple tables that store information about particular items. And so on page 8, it just talks about creating those individual tables. Page 9 gives you some additional information. Now, let me talk a little bit about the bottom of page 9. And this is table A-4. This is very, very important. This will be important for testing purposes. This will be important for the rest of our studies of Microsoft Access. And this is some terminology that you'll need to know. So we talked about a database being, in general, an entire overview of the particular or contains particular data elements. And then tables are groupings of records that pertain to or are part of the database. And then you have something called records, which I just referenced earlier, which are part of a table. And then you have something called fields, which are part of records. So if you're looking at a hierarchy of how these things are organized, think about it in this way. A field is the smallest unit of data, okay, of a database, a field. A collection of fields makes a record, okay? A collection of records makes a table. A collection of tables make a database. So fields, records, tables, and databases. Those are some very important key terminology items, and you just need to be able to be familiar with those and how they interact with one another. And that's, again, talked about on Access page 9 at the bottom. A primary key, as talked about on Access page 10, is really something to have to do with relating databases to each other. And a primary key helps you to avoid duplicates. It allows you a common field to be able to search for items. For instance, think about whenever you use campus technology here on the Tishomingo or the Ardmore campuses, what common data element do you give various offices whenever you have questions about your financial aid or your transcripts or your bill? You give a student ID or what used to be a social security number. That is the primary key for our database and all of our various tables here at the college. That's unique to you. A primary key, as talked about at the top of page 10, is uniquely identifying the records, and it also helps to relate one table to another. So we can put in your primary key information, your student ID, and we can look up your information in a business office. But then it also ties to information in a financial aid office. It might also tie into the registrar's office. All those items together relate to one another and allows us to pull up information about you whenever you come visit our offices. Access page 12 talks about relating to tables, and when you talk about relating to tables, it just helps you to avoid duplicate data entry. So you're not having to go in and put the same information over and over and over again. For instance, instead of having to put in your last name and first name over and over and over again in the business office, the registrar's office, financial aid office, we use a relational database model, and we use a primary key, which is your student ID, and that allows us to enter your demographic information in one table at one time, and everywhere else that information is pulled up, it's going to be consistent. So one office is not changing it with another office. And that's the idea of relating two tables together. Access page 14 just talks about entering the data into the tables. It's pretty straightforward. It's a lot like entering information using an Excel spreadsheet. And then the same way with Access 16 and 17 talks about editing the data. Essentially, you're using the arrow keys, you're pressing enter, you're moving around the actual table structure, the datasheet view, to go in and make the changes. Okay, well, that's it for your introduction to Microsoft Access. As usual, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them to the appropriate discussion forum. And I hope you enjoy this program and have a great day. Thank you.